All right, here we go. 3, 2, and 1. Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Bruce and Bob Show. Bob Mueller with News 2. Nashville media entrepreneur Bruce Dobie. We're here to talk some politics. A little bit later, the good, the bad, and the ugly from the state legislature. Nashville Democratic State Senator Jeff Yarbro will join us. So we'll be talking about the just adjourned state legislature, what took place this year on Capitol Hill. What's been going on in your world?
You know, just going to work every day, being a God-fearing citizen of this great community. I was struck this week by the, we had the shootings in the bus station.
It's really frightening.
They're really frightening, and there have been other outbreaks of other shootings in this community. And what struck me a couple of things. One, the notion that big urban city, the great assets of big urban agglomerations of people are that we get wonderful entertainment, great cuisine, and all that sort of stuff. Great economic development. Diversity. On the downside, we get the urban afflictions that beset other great, huge cities like New York, LA, whatever else. And so we've got this urban youth violence problem. And as much as a city's chief executive can try and get out front on these problems, and I know Megan Barry has with juvenile violence, there are things that could caterwaul her administration. You look at what happened to the blizzards in certain northeastern cities that absolutely run public officials out of office. If we have a continuation of the type of gun violence that we've got in this market, it could provide real problems to her and other elected officials.
Well, and without being anti-gun, too, there's an issue that needs serious discussion, because these are all teenagers armed, 18-year-old the oldest, 4 people shot, 1 seriously. And even though this was an isolated incident, these kids were targeted.
Yeah.
The violence is still going on among school kids, people using the bus station, anybody in the surrounding area, unfortunately gets caught in the crossfire, and that's what happened.
Yeah. And to run to the legislature real quick, if we're going to do a summary of what went on there. I mean, the NRA, they're in the complete grip of the gun lobby.
They're strong. They're as strong as any lobby, maybe the strongest lobby out there.
Yeah, strongest lobby. And you look at the bill, and our guest later, Jeff Yarbro, can talk more about that, but the bill to allow certain people on college campuses to run around with guns, it's absolute lunacy, in my judgment, in my humble. And
the interesting thing about that bill was that the bill was passed in another form for private universities with an option to opt out. And the sponsor, one of the amendments was put on that bill to, well, let's let public universities opt out too. And the sponsor said no, legislature said no.
Yeah.
And I'll give the sponsor credit. He was asked why, and he said, well, because they'll all opt out.
Yeah.
So you treat the public universities different than the private universities because you can.
Yeah. Well, I'll flip it back to you.
Okay.
What kind of scorecard do you give the legislature? They left town last week. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Well, they increased spending a little bit for education. They did nothing on roads, which is probably the biggest mess going on across the whole state. Wasn't even a bill introduced. There was no discussion. TennCare, Insure Tennessee, whatever you want to call it, nothing was done.
Kick the can down the road.
There's now a healthcare study taking place. Some have called it a charade. We'll see what happens. Let's give them an opportunity to see if they can actually do something. A lot of social issues with the transgender bathroom issue, the Bible is the state official book, and the bill that the governor just signed this week, the gay objection counseling bill, which allows counselors to say, I'm not going to provide my services for a gay couple. Although the codicil was that the governor said anyway, by signing it, he would have to require or find an alternative. You couldn't just say no and shut the door. You have to refer to someone else. I guess that's some kind of give and take. But really nothing of substance that I saw that changed the landscape of Tennessee.
Yeah, and as you look at this state from 30,000 feet, in the last 24 hours, I have heard us mentioned twice on national media in disparaging ways. One was the counseling bill. That was on the Today Show this morning. And it was the East Coast liberal media establishment, whatever you want to call it.
And that's going to happen.
Ridiculing.
Yes.
Ridiculing. And the second was on MSNBC, as I was watching a report on the returns that came in Tuesday, was a report that of the GOP voters who went to the polls, the highest number of Republican voters in a primary responded in exit polls. 71% in Tennessee of the Republican voters said they agreed with the ban on Muslims coming into the nation. Both referring to us in really disparaging ways.
It's the makeup, it's the shift that has happened in the state of Tennessee, agree or disagree with it. The view is a conservative view. And the hardcore conservative view, the Tea Party folks, the really right-wing folks, are in control of the state legislature right now, the Republican branch of the state legislature right now. That's where these views come from. And we talked about this a little bit last week. A lot of this really has nothing to do with the outcome. A lot of this is, again, agree or disagree in response to the Supreme Court's decision allowing gay marriage. This is a way to chip away at that and say, we disagree with that, we can't change it, but we can do this because this is our belief, and they believe this strongly, right or wrong. That's why a lot of this legislation happens. Let's talk a little bit about nationally the presidential race. What fun this has been, and I've never seen someone who has little chance to zero chance of becoming the nominee select a running mate. And I've never seen a running mate sing before. What was all that mess yesterday?
Yeah, the best analogy I heard of it was, you're the kid in the school who doesn't want to take the test, so you set off the fire alarm. You know, you're the guy who doesn't want to really put your name on the ballot in Indiana, so you do something else to grab attention. All things considered, and my wife and I had an argument about this last night. I thought it was utterly brilliant. Well, I mean, he gets a woman, number 2. Trump hates women, so he's going to lock down some women vote. Carly Fiorina is a very effective debater. I don't know if you remember.
I agree. She took Trump on head on.
She took him on beautifully. And so I thought, all things considered, it was a great move.
Except that Ted Cruz is not going to get the nomination. Except for that.
Yeah, and I think Trump is on his way to get the 1237, I get. But if you can hold him off, you know, I mean, there is a path forward. It's a very narrow path for Ted Cruz. And, you know, if he does well in Indiana, and then Carl, again, Fiorina won the Republican primary in California for the Senate years ago against Barbara Boxer. If there's a way for them to stem the tide of pro-Trump support, maybe they've got a chance, you know.
If you listen to the national boys, it seems like it's still divided. There's the pro-Trump people, there's the hardcore conservatives who want no part of Trump, and then there's the whatever this establishment is, and nothing has come together yet. Although it seems to be some of these so-called establishment people are flirting and trying and talking with Trump and kind of holding their nose and going, maybe we got to get behind this guy because he's going to be the nominee.
Hey, did you see Corker's response to Trump's foreign
policy
speech?
I did.
Didn't that surprise you?
Yes, it surprised me a lot because he's been.
Which was what? Tell our viewers.
He kind of said he thought his speech on foreign policy showed a leadership ability that maybe we can kind of get behind and would move this country forward. And Bob Corker has pretty much been very anti-Trump until now. So this is, again, one of the establishment moderate Republicans kind of going, this looks like the guy. If we can kind of keep him on track, maybe he's going to be okay. I was very surprised.
I was shocked. I was shocked. As we all know, Corker is chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and I mean it's a huge post, and he's very knowledgeable about worldly issues. And then to have every knowledgeable critic assail the speech, every expert in Washington was harshly
pasted together from different articles and really didn't have any real specifics and. He really didn't deliver it very well. I mean, it was ripped up pretty good.
Speaking of Corker, I would have to imagine the guy's on every Veep short list.
I would think so.
Right.
And he would be a good choice. Although I'm not sure what the country wants moderate-wise. He's a moderate. He may not like that term, but that's where he is. He's willing to negotiate and cut deals. But so is Donald Trump. So who knows?
Yeah.
Here's my VP for Donald Trump. Nikki Haley of South Carolina.
Oh, beautiful.
She's an attractive, young woman, Native American, did the right thing with the rebel flag, was a Tea Party favorite even though they backed off, but they still support her. South, she would be a home run for Donald Trump.
Of course, she took on Trump.
She did, but you know how politics is. That all changes.
Right. She'll say
she endorsed Rubio, but you know that's in the past and things can change.
Yeah.
Let's get our guest in. Let's get
State
Senator Jeff Yarbro in and talk about the state legislature because we appreciate him coming and talking to us and appreciate the 4 months you've been on State Capitol Hill looking at all the issues. Give your grade of the state legislature, what you just finished. And you're Democrats, obviously. You're in the minority party. But what was the good that came out of the past session?
Well, the good, I think, would be outweighed a little bit by the bad. But I think that you mentioned it. We did start putting a little bit of real money into K-12 education and started making good on some promises that have been made.
Did increase the rainy day fund, which is good.
We did that. I mean, I think largely we had the upsides that come with having increased revenue. And I also think there are a couple things that Nashville snuck in along the way. We passed a couple of bills that enable the city to plan for mass transit, both in the public-private partnership bill and bus on shoulders. And we also passed a bill that would allow us to start tackling affordable housing. So we've created a few tools that might allow the local government to do some good things. Those weren't high-profile issues, but those are upsides that I think we see this session.
I anticipate your answer that you're a voucher opponent, school voucher, public school voucher.
Opponent.
Opponent.
Opposed
What
to
happened to that? I thought that bill would have stood a chance of passage with the overwhelming Republican presence.
I thought it would have passed 4 years ago. They've
I
had
did
a
too.
supermajority.
Why does that continue to get buried?
That continues to get buried because no one wants to actually see it happen in their town. And so because all these people respond to the teachers and principals and parents of their home districts, and people don't want vouchers in their hometowns. And so the only way they're ever able to get any traction on it is by narrowing the scope.
Right.
And so you have rural Republican legislators imposing basically vouchers on urban areas.
Well, distinguish for me the difference between a charter school and vouchers politically. Why are charters so popular among legislators and vouchers so unpopular?
I mean, I think that there's probably two things. I mean, I think one is you're actually just taking money out of the public school system on the vouchers piece, and two, you're sort of making it to where you're expressly making it about kind of a competition market aspect as opposed to charters. I think are judged based on their performance and results as opposed to whether this number of people show up and put their money in the basket.
I was talking to Mike Kelly. We're coming to you from Jimmy Kelly's famous steakhouse here, the owner of the steakhouse, earlier before you guys arrived, about roads. And it seems like this is a nonpartisan issue. I understand it's an election year. No one wants higher taxes. Tennessee, for years, was touted as having the best roads in the country. That is not the case anymore, and there wasn't even a debate on the issue. How can that happen?
It was, I think, the biggest failure of the year. I mean, if you look from one side of the state to the other, but especially here in the Middle Tennessee area, we are just, we're getting choked by traffic.
Falling apart in traffic.
And it's going to be a block on the future development of the state economically. It's a drag on people's life every day, the time they spend with their family, and we did nothing about it at a time that gas taxes are the lowest they've been in decades. And so I think it's just a
what's the political negative? I couldn't understand. I know no one wants to raise taxes in an election year. I get that, but isn't there a way to find something, at least address the issue, at least discuss the problem? There was not one word on it.
I thought it was unbelievable that debate ended before it started. I mean, the governor did a statewide tour before session started, but then Speaker Harwell and Majority Leader Norris in the Senate both sort of put a kibosh on any discussion of a gas tax, and I thought it was unfortunate the governor didn't show some leadership in enforcing that conversation.
What about Insure Tennessee? I mean, obviously that has failed twice. It was dead on arrival before it ever arrived last year. Now you're having this summer a health care study by Representative Beth Harwell, the Speaker of the House. One Democrat, 4 Republicans. One of your cohorts called it a charade, and nothing's really going to get done. Your thoughts on this? Is this at least addressing the problem, or is it not?
I mean, I think the time for study is sort of past.
We know the
there
problem
aren't that many
exists.
new ideas coming to the table. I'm happy to see anybody come to the table to start actually talking about this issue. We have to do it. We've already lost almost $3 billion to the state's economy. We've had 5 or 6 hospitals close already. I think we're just going to get through the next presidential election. I think we will see after that the Affordable Care Act will be here for a while, and I think that we'll see some reality, and Insure Tennessee will come.
You've been in the Senate for how many years now? Two.
2.
Haslam remains an enigma to me. That's the only way I can describe the guy. How would you characterize him in terms of leadership, intellect, political skills, whatever else?
Well, I've always enjoyed the chance to work with him when he takes on big issues. I just wish he'd take on big issues more.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he took a swing on Insure Tennessee last year.
But it was a weak one.
But it was a weak swing.
Well, he forgot the politics.
And he forgot the politics along the way. And so If he's going to make a meaningful difference in the state, if his tenure is going to mean something to the state of Tennessee, I think he's got a lot to prove in the last 2 years. But I hope he steps up to that.
I did see some leadership that I know some of his party did not appreciate when he pretty much talked to the sponsor of the transgender bathroom bill into at least delaying it until next year, a little arm twisting there, and got some votes for yes, approving the Bible as a state book to say no and not override his veto. So there was a little bit of political savvy taking place there. For the first time I've really seen, he did none of that with Insure Tennessee.
I think that's right. I mean, I think that's sort of the best that you can say for the last session of the General Assembly is that we avoided true disaster on a few different issues, like vouchers, like the Bible, like the transgender restroom. We still did a lot of silly things like creating a state rifle, which is this $12,000 sniper rifle, passing a resolution to sue the federal government over refugees, doing this counseling bill. We still very much look like a legislature from Donald Trump's America.
Although we just finished this legislative session, everybody's looking for next year as we prepare for January of 2017. What will be the biggest issue facing the state? Will it be transportation issues?
I think transportation and Insure Tennessee are going to come right back and be on the top of the agenda in January.
State Senator Jeff Yarbro, Bruce Dobie, Bob Mueller. That does it for the Bruce and Bob Show from Jimmy Kelly Steakhouse. We hope you enjoyed. Give us some feedback. We'll see you back here next week.
Thanks, guys.
Good.
Fun.